This is Newsline 360 here on TVC Channel 40. I want to welcome all our viewers watching on the cable as well as those watching on the TVC Plus app. I'm your host, Andre Huey. This week's edition of Newsline 360 is quite somber as we look at the devastation of Hurricane Melissa ravaging the islands across the Caribbean, most notably Jamaica, Cuba, and parts of Haiti. And to talk to us about the situation on the ground in Jamaica, as Jamaica is still picking up the pieces and trying to recover from this terrible disaster, the biggest of its kind to hit Jamaica in its history, is none other than Mr. Milton Walker from the RJR Communications Group. Mr. Walker, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Andre.
Well, first of all, it's really hard to know where to start with what's happening right now in Jamaica. I know it must be quite difficult for many persons, especially those who have been badly affected by this hurricane. Just give us an idea of what's happening on the ground in Jamaica, almost a week after Hurricane Melissa would have passed through the island.
Well, it's exactly a week because this time last week it was pounding communities in the west. Kingston and the east, as you know, we dodged a bullet. There's not much damage in this part of the island. The overwhelming devastation is in the parishes west of St. Mary. So it's St. Anne, Trelawney, St. James, Hanover, Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, and Manchester. Those are the parishes that are hardest hit. There's some damage in some of the other parishes, but those 8 parishes are the ones that are really, really devastated. And of course, the devastation is in varied degrees. There has been flooding. There's still a lot of water in some communities. There's still lots of communities that are marooned or cut off, either by parts of the road that just gave away or caved in. There are landslides. There are lots of trees that have fallen. Utility poles have fallen as well. And sometimes I've even heard of huge mounds of dirt that has just been washed on and covered the road. So the accessibility is an issue. The JDF has about half a dozen helicopters, and there are some private ones. We got, I think, 8 helicopters, including 3 Chinook helicopters. Those are the large ones from the U.S. government to help with the relief efforts. And that will help speed up the getting relief to those communities that are cut off, because we're working, even here in the media, there's a private company that's using a helicopter to reach communities that are not affected, and they've asked us whenever we go and manage to get, even if we go on foot, to pin the location to find it and then to tell them. And I've given them about 8 or 9 communities since morning that we know of that very little or no help has reached yet. So we're doing things like that. There are others. There are lots of people who have been going down into the parishes from Kingston, just people on their own, businesses, a group of friends, some churches, companies, various foundations, some entertainers, some sports people. They're all doing their part to get relief. But this has to be almost a daily operation for the next couple of months, because these people have no means of getting food and water. Then you have the humanitarian and medical crisis, because there are a lot of persons who may have, maybe hypertensive, maybe diabetic, or some other ailment, and their medicines were either damaged or destroyed, and they need to get medicine. And that is also a concern for the health authorities. And on the subject of health, there are 4 hospitals, the one in Black River, the one in Savlamar, Noel Holmes in Lucy, and Falmouth General Hospital in Trelawney. Those have been badly damaged. And Cornwall suffered some damage as well, but it's not as bad as the others. The Prime Minister, in fact, said Black River Hospital was destroyed. So others are, say, badly damaged. But those hospitals will have to be rebuilt, and those are, apart from SAB, are all on the coast. The clinics haven't been able to open, so there's literally almost no primary health care at all, none in those parishes right now. Those 8 parishes, power is out for 97 or 99% of the customers there. which means cell phone services is down. Starlink has been a blessing to many communities, to many individuals in those areas, and that's what's helped people to contact relatives to say, yeah, I'm okay. We lost the roof, but we're alive. And there are lots of persons like that we've also been trying to help in terms of connecting people with those kinds of messages. Lots of government buildings and other facilities have been damaged. Schools, Homewood, Mannings, uh, the St. Elizabeth Technical High School, and many others. Westwood, I hear, is also devastated. Many schools have been primary and high schools have been badly damaged. Uh, some police stations, particularly the older ones built like in the 19th century, those ones are the ones that have been badly damaged, and I gather a couple have been actually destroyed. They may have lost their roofs. Uh, Courthouses, the Black River Courthouse, I think, is pretty much no more. The one in Sav lost a roof, had significant roof damage, and others as well. So life in the western part of the island is almost at a standstill. There's no power, so the city of Montego Bay is trying to come back, get back on its feet. It's had a gut punch. There's severe flooding in a couple communities, and of course, lots of homes suffered damage. Westgate, West Green, I think, and Catherine Hall, yeah. The Barnett River overflowed its bank and flooded those communities. Hotels, some hotels have suffered damage. I don't know if a complete assessment has been done. Some have actually started to lay off people because I think I was told last night there are just 5,000 tourists left. There were 25,000 here just when the storm hit, and I think the bulk of those 20,000 left between Friday and yesterday. So there are only about 5,000 left. They're not coming in right now, so tourism is at a standstill, and that means we're not earning. Um, Individuals not getting any income, the taximen, jutermen, the people who work at attractions and so on, and the hotels. Farmers who used to supply hotels with food, fruits, and vegetables can't do so because the crops have been damaged. So it's a lot. Food prices are going to go up. It actually has started because we're going to have some shortages because St. Elizabeth and those other parishes were our main food producing parishes. So, St. Elizabeth, as you know, is a bread basket. It produced a lot, lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, and all that's gone. There may have to be some imports. Some of them will come back in about 2 to 3 months because, carrots and lettuce and crops like those will take, about 6 weeks or so to get back. Once you plant for it to grow and be able to reap. But it's poultry industry. One farmer lost 45,000 layer birds, 45,000. And there are many more poultry farms that have been destroyed or badly damaged. Livestock, a lot of livestock's dead, just either were drowned or died in the storm. Uh, and so it's a real mammoth task that we have ahead of us as a country.
Wow, I could imagine the devastation. I mean, just as you described it, where agriculture is concerned, and also that fact that tourism is ground to a halt. I want to get your thoughts, or at least your insight into the humanitarian crisis in especially the badly affected parishes. But I want to get your assessment of what's actually happening as it relates to relief, because we're hearing conflicting reports. We're seeing, for example, the Prime Minister he tried to visit all the affected areas. But there's some in the West, for example, we're seeing, all the attention seems to be happening or centered around Black River and St. Elizabeth. In fact, Black River has been described as ground zero by most news outlets. Is there an equal distribution, or at least an attempt to equal distribute the relief that's available right now for residents and citizens?
Initially, I think feedback. Initially, I thought that Black River and St. Elizabeth got a fair amount of attention. The funny thing is, the hurricane actually made landfall in Westmoreland, to the west of Black River, in eastern Westmoreland. So those communities in Whitehouse, Belmont, uh, in Darliston, and so on, those are badly affected. And the problem is that a lot of those communities were cut off. Nobody could reach them. I remember a counselor saying last week that even if you have a bike or bicycle, you won't be able to reach. Only if you're walking, and you'd have to be climbing over stuff, over rubble and so on, to get to them. So that was a challenge. And I think us only having limited number of helicopters, that also posed a challenge. We're seeing more every day, with more helicopters being pressed into service to deliver aid, that those problems are being solved. But it's taken a few days, perhaps a little longer than it should, for aid to reach some communities, and some of them are still cut off. Places, like Silo or Magotip, Balaclava, in St. Elizabeth, that's deep inland, and the nobody got help till perhaps about, I think, Friday on the weekend. And as I said, you get a care package which will last a day or two. You're gonna need more. You're gonna need more food and more water as well, because with the power out, there's also no water in many areas, because the NWC pumps, that's the National Water Commission, needs power to pump water. The Great River Water Supply System, which supplies a lot significant areas in Hanover, Westmoreland, and St. James, and I think much of the city of Montego Bay, the intake pipe was just damaged or destroyed by the hurricane, so it has to be replaced. They're doing a temporary solution, which I think should be completed this week, either mid this week or by the end of this week, and that will get that back on stream. But then in other cases, because there's been a lot of rainfall and mud and so on, the turbidity levels in the water systems is very high, and so the NWC has sometimes had to shut them down in order to protect them until the water clears up. So those are some issues that we've had to contend with in order to move ahead and to get aid to the various populations that are in absolute distress.
Right. Well, hold that, Milton. We'll take a quick break and be right back. You're watching Newsline 360 here on TVC Channel 40. We're speaking to Milton Walker from the RJR Greener Communications Group as we look at the devastation that Hurricane Melissa left in Jamaica and how Jamaica is recovering. We'll be right back.
Your favorite TV shows are just a click away with TVC Plus at tvcplus.live. Stream our 24-hour live programming. Catch the latest episodes of TVC Originals on demand. Enjoy premium pay-per-view content and so much more. Watch on any device, TV, laptop, tablet, or smartphone. Visit www.tvcplus.live. Stream, watch, enjoy.
Tune in to Insights on TVC, where we explore the unique stories and perspectives of our fascinating guests.
I used to get in trouble for talking.
I am really angry. I forget English.
I had good examples of what people could become.
Each episode brings you an in-depth look at individuals from diverse backgrounds, sharing their personal journeys and valuable life insights.
I don't know. We're going to bathe here because Papa Bratcher says nobody owns the beach in St. Kitts.
People who sound like this and saying that they're like 15, I'm like, you have a beard.
Insights airs on Mondays at 8 p.m. with rebroadcast on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Only on Television Caribbean, TVC, You can also stream on demand at tvcplus.live.
At The Cable, we believe in giving back because when our community thrives, we all do. That's why, as a company, we make it our mission to touch the lives of everyone in St. Kitts. We spearheaded the renovation of JNF Hospital lobby to ensure better care for all. The Cable sponsors free Wi-Fi in every community center across St. Kitts, so no one is left behind in an increasingly connected world. We stand with communities through every moment, big or small, in culture, education, youth development, and more. Y a ti también, comunidad latina. Cuenta con nosotros. Estamos con ustedes. And when it comes to customer service, we set the standard. We're just a call, click, or visit away because you matter to us. Join the company that truly cares. The Cable, more than service. We're family. Somos familia. And we're proud to always give more where it matters.
It's entertainment TV at its finest. Join us for Main Event, the Caribbean's leading entertainment show only on Television Caribbean TVC. Tune in as our host chats with top artists and entertainers, bring you the latest buzz in entertainment, and showcase the hottest music videos from the region's biggest stars. Main Event airs on Thursdays at 8 p.m. with rebroadcast on Fridays at 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. When it comes to entertainment, it's always the Main Event on TVC.
Welcome back to Newsline 360. I'm your host, Andre Huey. We're discussing the devastation in Jamaica left by Hurricane Melissa. And joining us to do that is Milton Walker from the RJR Communications Group, RJR Gleaner Communications Group, one of the senior journalists there. Milton, so before the break, we spoke about the recovery efforts and the challenges that the authorities are having in getting into some communities because the roads are still blocked. Where are we now in terms of some of those communities? I know work has been done to clear some of the roads, and relief, has been sort of now be coming into those areas. But how are the authorities coping with the challenges of getting the roads cleared in time to get into those communities?
Well, it is a challenge, and getting the tractors in place to move, to get the roads clear, and all the main roads, I think, so right now have been cleared at least to one lane. Yeah. But some of the minor roads that go into Interland and into these small towns and villages, that's a challenge. I don't know if all have been cleared, but I know a lot more. Every day they're clearing more and more roads. I spoke to the Works Minister last night, and he was telling me about some of the difficulties that they have in terms of just clearing the roadway to the various roadways. And also, you clear the roadway, but further down, there may be a breakaway, and you can't drive, because 3/4 of the road is a huge hole because the ground does collapse, because we've been having rain from September, and the earth's saturated, and as a result, the soil is loose. So that's why we've had so many landslides. I'm sorry, and that's why we've had a lot of loose dirt just being washed in the roadway. Journeys which would normally take like 2 hours are taking 5-6 hours. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But that's the situation that we're in. The JPS told us at the briefing last evening that power has been restored to just over to 206,000 more customers. There were 550,000 out of the 700,000 that were without power, and so that number is been reduced by 206,000. So just over 344,000 customers are still without power, and most are in those 8 parishes. Kingston was 95% restored, Portland 95%, St. Thomas 95%, St. Catherine was 95% as well, 90%. So it's just, I think, 48% of the JPS customers who are without power. The challenge in those areas that have been devastated is that you'll be driving on a road and for 4 miles, all the utility poles are down. And some are broken, including the concrete ones. That's something which we found absolutely
Yes,
remarkable.
I noticed that as well. So I found that remarkable that the concrete poles, which were really designed to be, resilient against the storms, they were breaking apart.
Yeah, so that is a huge, huge problem, and it also shows you just how powerful the hurricane was. Now, you need to move huge amounts of power. I'm not sure I'm getting the terms right, from various locations across the island, and that's not what you don't do that on your regular wooden or concrete poles. So there's these huge steel girders that are in the countryside that you sometimes won't necessarily see them on the main roads or on the coast, but they're deep inland. So you take power from the south to where most of our power is generated, actually, to the north. So there's this huge line that runs from, I think, somewhere in St. Elizabeth to St. James, because Moby is a big city, and it consumes a lot of power. So I'm told that those huge steel girders, which you also see if you're in the States, you see them when you're on the motorways traveling. Those are on the ground, crumbled, and those are steel, made of steel. And Melissa took them down, and the JPS CEO was saying that was one of the things that struck him most, that the hurricane took down these huge steel girders, just tossed them to the ground. The challenge with that, you're going to need a specialist helicopter to, when you get them, because they have to be prefabricated elsewhere and custom designed, and then brought to the island on a vessel, and then a special helicopter has to airlift them and drop them in the various areas that they need to. So that tells you the challenge that we're going to have to restore power to some areas. They've got last weekend up to Saturday, they had 71 linesmen from abroad, from Caribbean countries and from the United States, and I think Canada, and they're getting another, I think, 100 more. They also said they're getting 50 bucket trucks, because all their bucket trucks right now, the JPS, are in use across the devastated areas. So they're getting an additional 50 bucket trucks to help with the power restoration. But it's going to take weeks and months for some communities to get back power.
Yeah, I could imagine. Now, in terms of the humanitarian crisis, the people who have been affected by this hurricane, how are they coping? From the reports that you've been getting and the reports that you've seen, how are those people coping with the fact that they don't have water, they don't have food, for extended periods of time, and many of them have lost their homes, they have nowhere to stay?
Yeah, there are people who are sleeping in cars. There's some people who have got tarpaulin and have put over the house, and they're sleeping in the house. In many areas when you go, you see mattresses just outside being put to dry because they got soaked. There's a family, and I know they aren't the only ones, who are sleeping in their cars since the hurricane because their home was destroyed. Some homes just will need a roof and windows. Of course, that's a huge expense. But there are many homes which have just been totally just destroyed. It's no more. Particularly in the rural parts, in some communities, there are a lot of wooden homes. Westmoreland in particular, they had this kinds of home called chattel houses, which you could literally lift and put on a flatbed trailer and move somewhere else, put on 4 blocks or a stone foundation, and the hurricane literally just tossed those like you throw a milk carton or orange juice box, and just and not just push it away, broke it up. Yeah. And so those homes are gone. there's a crisis, a housing crisis. There will be one.
Is it also, Milton, not to cut you, but is it also due to the fact that, because we also understand that, especially in St. Elizabeth and those rural communities, that a lot of those houses were wooden houses as well. So that exacerbated the situation.
Yes, yes, yes. In those parts, and as I said, in particular Westmoreland, there are a lot of there's some, I saw a couple in Falmouth that stood up, and there are others beside it that just they're gone. Uh, there, that is a problem. That is a challenge. Housing, shelter. There's an opposition MP, Dr. Dayton Campbell from Eastern Westmoreland, who is proposing using container homes. Those cost a little over $3,000 for one, and if we can get, perhaps about 100,000 of those, that will help significantly to solve the housing crisis. Of course, there are a few people who are, may have had a home in Kingston. I've heard of one such family this month, which simply just, packed up and they're living in Kingston, moved to Kingston. But that's not the situation for the majority of persons in those areas. The majority of people have nowhere to go. Yeah, they may have relatives, but sometimes their relatives are in another parish that was devastated. Yeah, only if you have someone in the corporate area in Kingston and St. Catherine will you be able to. And then you come and stay there for a couple of weeks and get yourself mentally overcoming what you just went through. But then you need to work. Perhaps your business was in Westmoreland. What do you do? How do you make a living? And you work with a company that existed in Hanover or somewhere, or you may have worked with a hotel. All those are just so many variables, so many issues that people have to work through now. And I mentioned tourism. Some hotels are closed. Are gonna close because they're damaged. So we're gonna have a situation where less tourists are coming. I think before we're projected to get about 5 million tourists this year, or 5.3. That's gonna be compromised. I don't know how the winter tourist season will look. By December 15th, we should have restored power, hopefully, to large parts of St. Anne and the city of Montego Bay and Hanover and so on. But will that be enough to lure tourists back? We're going to have to undertake a huge marketing campaign in our main markets, the United States and Canada and Britain, to get tourists to come back, because people hear of a devastated island, they're going to think, okay, let me go somewhere else. I don't think that's somewhere I want to go spend my holiday. I make a little donation, but I'll go somewhere else. So we also have that as a challenge to face, and how do we deal with that?
Yeah. And we should let our viewers know as well that, there were parts of Jamaica that was largely unscathed by the hurricane, Kingston being one of them, minimal damage, parts of Clarendon as well. So, as you talked about, some residents having homes or relatives in other places in Jamaica they can go to that were largely unaffected by the hurricane. That is also one factor to consider. Before we go, just two things quickly. There has been some talk about the need for the government and the opposition to work together. We've heard some questions asked in the most recent press conference where that is concerned. How is that coming together? I mean, we see the opposition, they're doing their thing, the government, they're doing their thing. I don't get the sense that there is a sense of unison on the political level, at least, to work through in helping the country to recover. Where do we stand where that is concerned?
That's been an issue. The opposition has said they're not going to politicize the crisis. The opposition leader also has indicated that he's been giving some suggestions to the Prime Minister, to the government, and I think he met with the Prime Minister last week. There are some suggestions that maybe the Prime Minister should have taken the opposition leader on a couple tours that he's been to. So, you'd have seen that, the two men together. The Prime Minister created this committee to oversee the reconstruction, relief first and reconstruction. And it's got the local government minister, Desmond McKenzie, Darrell Vaz, Transport and Energy minister, and Danville Walker, who headed the previous Office of National Reconstruction after Hurricane Ivan in 2004, when Prime Minister P.J. Patterson was in office. There are some criticism that perhaps an opposition person should be on, or two should be on that body, and perhaps someone from civil society as well. Uh, you have that. The prime minister announced, or the government announced last evening, that he had appointed Bishop Harold Blair, who is a noted evangelical pastor, to work on just that, bringing us together. And I think he's also asked two former prime ministers, Bruce Golding and former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson, to help in that effort, and he has reached out to both men as well. So there is an attempt at healing and to bring us together, because that's the only way we're going to get through this together. But I can tell you, on the ground, the people, ordinary Jamaicans, are working together. Ordinary Jamaicans are pulling together, doing what they can. The supermarkets, wholesales, and the wholesale clubs on Friday, Saturday, were packed, and you could tell that people were bulk buying to take down to the affected parishes. You've had that. People are doing their part, but as I said, that has to be sustained on an almost daily basis. And people also need clothes, because if you lost your home, you more than likely lost your clothes. They're gonna need to get documents back as well. Birth certificates, maybe a passport, driver's licenses, and things like that. To be able to get their lives back together. So it's at times it may seem overwhelming. It's depressing, I must tell you, even for people in the capital. I've heard so many people in Kingston telling me that they feel so bad, they're depressed about what they've seen, and some have not even left the city because they feel so bad. One even suggested it's like survivor's guilt, yeah, because we dodged the bullet. So there is that, and of course, if people in Kingston are feeling some mental distress, spare a thought for someone who was in a home. You lost the roof from one room, then the living room went, then you had to rush and be clinging to or hiding in a closet while the storm raged. The winds in Kingston were terrifying. I can't imagine what they would be like for someone in Belmont or in Black River or Parity in St. Elizabeth. It must have been horrifying. I was here at work where I slept 2 nights last week, and we have hurricane shutters on our windows here, and it sounded like the storm was trying to take the shutters off. It was howling, rattling the shutters, and it was a terrifying experience. But that pales in comparison to what somebody in parts of St. James, Hanover, Trelawney, St. Anne, Manchester, St. Elizabeth, and Westmoreland would have experienced.
And on that note, since you brought up the issue as well of the depression and the mental state of persons who have been impacted by this hurricane, the media, the journalists, the workers who are going out in the field, who are covering this disaster and presenting it to the public, they're seeing it firsthand. How are they coping? I could imagine that there are journalists who are just having a really difficult time dealing with this story.
Indeed, and quite a few of my team members have suffered loss as well. My reporter who lives in Westmoreland, she lost her home. 3 of my team members who live in Montego Bay, 2 suffered roof damage. 1 was flooded. My correspondent in St. Anne lost his roof. So, and even a team member in Kingston lost part of her roof as well. So it's pretty devastating. We are actually looking at, we're arranging counseling this week for our team members because it's a really difficult time. And of course, our colleagues in other media houses are having the same issues as well.
Before I let you go, Milton, I do have to let you speak a bit about Jamaica's preparedness, or at least the efforts that the authorities are making. I know there is a catastrophe bond that was in place that was, much talked about by the previous finance minister, Dr. Nigel Clark, that is now being triggered. And there's also some other insurance payments that have been triggered as well. That is going to be part of the relief efforts. Could you just speak to that as well and just give us an update on where we are with that?
All right, so the catastrophe bond, which is triggered by, I think, the level of pressure and intensity of the storm, that's 150 million US, and that the government has triggered that. I think we'll pretty much get all of that. The government had set aside $5.3 billion in the budget as a contingency, and that's about 33 million US. So that they have that. There is a disaster risk fund in the budget. That's about 6.2 million US. And from the CREEF insurance, I think we will get perhaps about 11 million US. So those are some of the figures I know. And of course, we're getting lots of aid. I know we have also some credit facilities through the World Bank and IDB to help us and that we can avail ourselves of. But in terms of the immediate needs, I think Jamaica will be able to take care of it, but we're going to need external financing. Absolutely. No doubt about that. The capital works that would need to be undertaken to rehabilitate roads, the couple bridges that have been damaged, the buildings, the government buildings, the courthouses, the municipal corporations, the schools, police stations, and I think even some fire stations, hospitals, that's going to require a few billion US dollars as well.
Well, Milton Walker, I want to thank you so much for your time and for really giving us a very comprehensive assessment of what's happening in Jamaica. Our thoughts and prayers are with the entire country, and I know the world is going to come to Jamaica's aid as well and see the country build back even stronger than before. Thank you so much for your time.
Right. My pleasure.
Okay. And that's how we end this week's edition of Newsline 360 here on TVC Channel 40. I was your host, Andre Huey. Thank you for watching. Remember, you can watch this show again in its entirety by visiting our website, tvcplus.live, or social media networks, or on the TVC Plus app. Search TVC Plus in the Google Play and the Apple App Store. From all of us here at TVC Channel 40, thank you for watching, and stay tuned to Television Caribbean.